How's business?
Crazy.
Hello, my name is Dean Contover. This is a Current Buzz. I'd like to say Happy New Year. It's a new year. So we have Dennis Mullen. He's an old friend of mine. He's from Club Z. You know what Club Z is? He's the area director of tutoring and test prep for children. Because of COVID-19, I want to bring him in here because he's swamped. Aren't you, Dennis?
Yeah, really crazy right now.
And I just want to talk, before we talk about tutoring, et cetera, we're going to talk about the SAT tests also. So what I want you to do is to stick around because SATs are starting to change, and it probably may be Zoomed eventually or
Digital. Well, digital, yeah.
Okay.
Digital, yeah.
But I like to talk about your daughter in regards to
Oh, thanks.
she's a class of 1998, right, in terms of
That's
high
correct.
school.
That's correct.
She's the coach of University of
Albany,
New York. And she has a pretty good team.
Women's basketball, yeah, they've had a good team. They went to the NCAA last year. They won their league tournament, their conference tournament, and wound up going to the NCAAs. They went down to Louisville, who was the #1 seed in the country, wound up going to the Final Four, and got beat pretty handily, but it was a great experience, and they've had a really successful season last year, and they're on their way for a successful season this year as well.
Colleen started coaching at the University of Alabama in 2018.
At Albany,
yeah. That's how we met.
Right.
She was assistant coach or associate coach.
Yeah, she was at West Point for 7 years, I think from maybe 2012 to 2018, in that range.
Is she going to stay at Albany?
I think so.
Albany plays UMass Lowell, right?
Yeah, we had a great crowd there. Colleen had a lot of her friends locally. In fact, they made comments that it seemed like a home game for Albany. They had so many people at the game.
Where is that played? That wasn't played at the Saugus Arena.
No, they played at Costello. The last 2 years prior, they had been playing at Saugus, but they don't get a big enough crowd.
Yeah,
and right now, also,
unless you get Duke in there or something.
Exactly, and also it's a school break for kids, so there aren't any students there. So you add that to kind of women's basketball isn't a huge draw, as we know. But
let's talk about the business of tutoring.
Absolutely.
Right. Club Z, you've been involved in that for years now.
22 years.
22 years. Explain what Club Z is to some people that never heard of it.
Sure.
And you can look it up online also.
Absolutely.
There's something
good.
Yeah.
Club Z, the business is actually a franchise. I'm a franchise owner. I've owned it for 22 years. So I have a territory. I'm located in Chelmsford, but I cover kind of the greater Merrimack Valley. We tutor kids one-on-one. Our model is that we go to the home, generally speaking, although if the home isn't, maybe it's noisy or too crowded, we can tutor at a library or something like that. But our model is we mold ourselves around the particular needs of each student. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that we're adapting our instruction to what the student needs. So we're not coming in with kind of a fixed curriculum. We're saying, what are you struggling with? What do you need help with? And that's what we work on.
So in other words, not every student is good at everything.
Correct.
Regards. And you know that. I mean, I was told that by a principal. I won't tell you what principal.
Don't want to date yourself.
Not every student, yeah, exactly. And he said, not every student is good in every subject.
Right.
So let's say math is a subject that someone needs help. How do they approach you? How do they contact you? How do they?
Well, a significant piece of our business actually comes from people that have worked with us before, and they refer us. Or somebody might make a note on Facebook, hey, I'm looking for a math tutor. Do you know somebody? And people will respond, which is great, with our name, and they'll contact us. Or they might find us on the web, doing a web search.
Yeah.
We come up, local thing kind of thing.
Yeah.
They'll give me a call. So I'll spend maybe 15, 20 minutes on the phone kind of getting an idea of what they need, describing our services a little bit. And the first step then is I meet with each family to get a more in-depth feel for the student, what they're working on, and also their personality. What are they involved in?
The family's personality? Or
the student. The student. Like, is a student involved in the arts? Are they an athlete? Are they quiet? Are they shy? What is going to be the right match? Because I'm going to try to match them with a tutor, primarily, obviously, from an academic perspective. If it's math, it's going to be a math tutor. But I've got different types of math tutors, some who are a little bit more outgoing, a little bit more serious. So I try to use that kind of introductory meeting as a way for me to get a feel for who I think would be the best match for the student. And then we guarantee the match, so we tell a parent, hey, if you don't think this is a spectacular match, we'll replace the tutor, won't charge you, and we'll put somebody else in. So that's worked out great. I've got some fantastic tutors who work for me, so we're able to be very successful kind of doing that and having the tutors make a real connection with the student. You know, and you're getting the same person all the time. So it isn't like you're getting whoever on duty, you're getting somebody assigned to you that gets to know you as a student. And we've had some relationships that have lasted 3, 4, 5 years.
Wow.
In tutoring, because the family is it's really kind of been part of their kind of academic process, like they might take karate lessons for 5 years. You know, people think nothing of doing something like that, but they go tutoring, oh, I might only need it if I'm struggling. Sometimes it's great to have that resource going forward. And one other thing, in addition to kind of, I would say, kids who are struggling, we also deal with it's not a huge percentage, but a small percentage of kids who I would call looking for enrichment. Maybe they're a 3rd, 4th grader, and they're a little bit ahead of where they should be, and the parent wants to kind of reinforce that. So we might do some higher level reading or higher level math, introduce them to some more complex subjects based on what the parents would like to do to kind of help that student kind of not sit around and be bored as a student, and you know, kind of enhance their kind of learning. So it's really interesting. We meet all kinds of different families, all kinds of different needs.
No doubt about it.
It's just no two situations are the same, which is what makes it so interesting.
Now, are you hiring tutors?
All the time.
All the time.
I'm always looking for great people.
Okay.
Obviously, you know, skill in the area that they're looking to tutor and some experience with that, but also the ability to make connections with young people. It's that connective piece that really makes the tutoring work, when the student can really trust that the tutor is working in their interest and is going to help them. Then they can open up, be more honest about what they need, and then we're better able to meet those needs for them.
Yeah, interesting. So give me a price range in regards to tutoring. Is it
Tutoring can range anywhere from, for us, from elementary, it's $75 an hour up to $90 an hour.
is it an hour? I mean,
that's per hour. Some sessions might be longer than an hour, depending on what they need.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think some people look at those range and they go, "Wow, that's you know, not inexpensive," and we realize that. However, we're kind of laser focused in every single moment that we're with the student. So, if you think of the kind of support you might get in a 3-person group with 3 different types of kids in a room with one person kind of helping them, we're getting one person helping them directly. So it's kind of a non-diluted, if you will, effort.
Do they go to the home, or do they go to a non-neutral site like the library?
We can go to the library. I'd say 90% of what we do is at the home. And the reason for it, well, 2 things. It's generally more convenient for the family. That's what we're trying to do. You don't have to get in the car, drive the kids somewhere,
Yeah.
fight traffic. Even Chelmsford Center, trying to get through Chelmsford Center at 5:30 at night can be a nightmare. And the other thing is, sometimes it's a little bit more, the student's a little bit more comfortable in those situations. It's a little bit easier. Now, it has some drawbacks where that comfort might be too comfortable, and you have to be kind of careful. So we have kind of a neutral area in the home. Might be a dining room to the side, the table that we work on, kitchen table if nobody's around. So we try to make it so that it's the kind of right fit for the right situation.
Oh, okay. How many tutors do you have in your umbrella or whatever?
Yeah, I've got about 25 active tutors right now who are working with different
What
subjects.
subject is the most needed?
Math.
Math, yeah.
Math, I can say it without a doubt. And here's the reason. It's logical when you think about it. Every other subject in the world, if you goof off on, you go to another chapter. So you don't pay attention to this English. Well, okay, you're going to read another book or another poem or go on to another thing. Same thing, social studies.
Good point.
Okay, we go on to the next period of time. Science is a little bit like math, but math builds on itself. If you fall asleep in term 1, or you're just not paying attention, you don't do homework. And I'll tell you, a big area that we see that this happens is middle school, and especially middle school boys. Where you think about it, where you're going from elementary to middle, the academic rigor is changing. It's a little bit more difficult. You're not getting that hand-holding you were getting at the elementary level, and kids have to kind of be independent. And at that age, there's a million distractions coming on board. Sports, video games, you name it, television, YouTube. They've got anything but school is what they want to do. And what generally we see is that parent calls up and says, geez, Timmy was doing so well first term, and now second term he got a D, and I just don't understand why. Well, I understand why. Timmy stopped doing work, okay? Look at his homework. He's not turning it in, So And it's funny that we see that. And so every time a parent calls and I go, what age? He goes, he's sixth grade. Well, I said, okay. And then I let him talk. I said, well, you're not the first person to call me.
Yeah, it makes them feel better, doesn't it, when you tell them?
And it's true. I mean, it's not, it is. It does make them feel better. You're not alone. This happens a lot. It tends to happen more to boys than young ladies, but it does happen.
Okay, so what happens? They're good in sports, they're not good in math. You tutor them, and
till they need. It can be a short term. It can be that they've got to get over a hump. Maybe let's say just chemistry might be a good example. It might be in a chemistry situation and they just don't. They hit a concept they can't understand.
Right.
They got a test coming up. Okay, they might need us for that, the next test, but now they're caught up. Okay, you don't need us anymore. That's great. It might be a 2-month type of engagement. That's perfectly fine for us. What I tell parents is, my goal is to have you fire me as soon as possible, meaning I want to do just what's needed, and when I'm not needed anymore, I want you to stop.
Right.
Because then you'll feel that you spent your money wisely, you got the value that you wanted. And I've got plenty of clients, so it's not a matter of, I don't want to try to, maximize my revenue with a client. I'm really looking to minimize it so that family's happy, they feel they've got the best value, and we can go on and work with additional.
when they bring in the tutor, is it parents are college degrees? Is that
All of my tutors, like sometimes we might have.
No, I'm talking about the parents that call you.
Oh,
usually,
different. It's a different. We have you'd be very surprised. We get a lot of, I would say, first generation families. Some of which are well educated, some of which aren't, but they want that education for their kids.
and they're willing to pay for the tuition.
They understand that that's a priority. They'll do that rather than do karate. And I'm not trying to dismiss, physical sports. My kids all played sports, and it was great for them, and that type of thing teaches you a lot as well. But if you think about what's more important, sometimes these families put the emphasis on those types of things.
Well, I mean, if you go to any country, education ministry is the priority in most countries.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
In this country, we kind of sometimes we poo-hoo it, but in other countries that they put the best talented people in the Ministry of Education, whether it's Africa, Middle East, or
I think you see a lot of that with with countries where put an emphasis on that. I think it's great to have a balance, which is what we have in the States here, but at the same time, you want a balance. You want to have a good balance with academic and cultural, whether it's music, art. We get a lot of theater students, for instance.
Why theater students?
For some reason, those students seem to understand the need to be the value that education brings to them. I don't know, it's a different type of. I don't know. We seem to get a lot of theater students, a lot of students who are involved in music, and music there's a high correlation, with music and different types of learning. But and those are great students for us because they're very serious. They are used to doing, having to show up and do things in order to reach an end, music or art. So it's great.
COVID, what's it done to?
COVID messed everybody up.
Yeah.
It just messed up learning. You can read all the articles. I mean, there's a million articles about the impact that COVID's
That's why I brought you in.
Yeah. Excuse me, that COVID's had on learning. And during COVID, people always said, oh, you must have had a lot of business during COVID with kids being out of school and needing help. I said, parents were so just overwhelmed with what was going on then that they really couldn't think outside that. Now what I'm seeing is kind of the after effects, where students aren't up to grade level. Again, gets back to math specifically as the primary.
What about reading?
It could be reading as well. Again, with masks on, you don't get a lot of the feedback and facial stuff. And just, it's created a lot of problems. So we're getting a lot more, I would say, elementary students where COVID really seemed to have the biggest impact. High school students, yes, but it was more content. Here's more development based. They lost a period of significant development that got diminished during that period of time, and it's really hard. And so we're seeing a lot more interest in tutoring from that kind of from that lower element.
Let's talk about test prep. That's really important these days. Yeah. And you also tutor test prep.
Yep, test prep. Actually, test prep is probably the biggest part of our business. SAT and a little bit of ACT.
What's ACT for people?
SAT and ACT are both fully accepted by every single college as a kind of standardized test.
Most
to
colleges.
evaluate. Every single college accepts both.
Except what?
Accepts both of those.
okay.
So they're interchangeable.
Okay.
So they're slightly different tests, and we help students kind of figure out which test might be better for them. And I won't go into all the detail of it, but there's some slight differences that might indicate you might want to take one test or the other. And that's a big part of the business. What's happening now, as you're aware and you see in the news now, is colleges are becoming test optional. And that's impacted our business a little bit, but what that really means for students is that what colleges really did this for two reasons. Number one is that they wanted to have more flexibility in their admissions process. Because the old adage used to be that colleges were looking for well-rounded students. Mm-hmm. That's no longer the case. Colleges are looking for a well-rounded student body. So they want to have a student body that's representative of the population.
Good point.
In the world, which is a great goal. However, if you just base admissions based on standardized testing and grades, you may not always wind up with that. So colleges have moved towards a more holistic approach, if you will,
I like that.
of student evaluation, which is great. However, it creates a difficulty a little conundrum for the college in that how do you kind of evaluate students if you now, say, don't have an SAT score? And I know I've heard anecdotally from some college admissions people that it's become a lot more difficult process for them because now they have to be more subjective. So it isn't like you could say, okay, we're going to put anybody with a 650 and above SAT in this pile. We'll take a look at them, and 550 to say, then these guys we're not going to look at. Well, now we got to look at the whole thing. We got to discuss, well, why is this better than that?
Wow. So they get around. They have a round table and they discuss every.
Yeah, and it's become more difficult. But if you think about it,
it's more of a science then, isn't it? I mean.
Well, it's in a way. I don't really know. It's become much more difficult for them. But the other thing, the value for the test optional is they get more kids to apply. And so what happens is the U.S. News and World Report ranks colleges based on the number of students that apply to the school. Mm-hmm. So the more kids that apply, the better they look in a ranking. So it's beneficial for them, and they get the application fees. But the real impact for students in looking at that is how does it impact you if you're making a decision, do I take the SAT or not? If you can do better than the average student attending the schools that you're applying to, then you should take the SAT. The difficulty with that is that the SAT also is a test that to really maximize your score on, you need to prepare. Whether it's with us, whether it's on your own, you really need to understand how the test works. What are the strategies? Because there's a lot of strategies and a lot of knowledge about how the test is structured that can help you optimize what you do know on the test. The difficulty is, even some people will come to us late in the process and looking for SAT help. And what I tell them is,
excuse me 1 second.
Sure.
When should they start looking for help?
Ideally, they should start looking at the end of sometime in their junior year. So sometime in the junior year, sophomore. they should be talking to us. Oh, certainly if you're super serious.
Yeah.
I mean, you could start as a freshman and do things. Those types of students, when we work with them, quite frankly, we don't really have them work on the test per se. We have them work on test skills. So I might have them be reading, say, more difficult text. I've got this great short story book that I give to students. And then we'll discuss those and work on vocab, work on, character development, how the story works, because the reading part of the SAT is probably the most difficult to quickly improve on, because you're kind of stuck with your reading comprehension. Mm-hmm. So if we can get kids improved on reading comprehension, vocabulary, mode of expression, early on, that's definitely a help.
Don't they have to write a essay or something like that?
Don't have to do that anymore. That's gone out. So, which I think is kind of silly. So now the college essay is the big thing.
The college,
the college essay they have to do when they apply on the Common App.
Yeah.
And that's with the SAT. That probably, to me, is the most critical element on the student's application.
Good point.
That can help. That can make the difference between them and another student that might look similarly academically.
Right.
And there's a great couple of sites on Twitter and I think Instagram with people who go and interview kids at Ivy League college. Say, what did you write your essay about? One kid might say, I wrote it on why I don't like chocolate ice cream.
Wow.
We were talking about when we were kids.
Yeah.
You know, it used to be a humble brag. You'd say, "Oh, you know, I went to Guatemala and worked on a home, and the people that I met were just so wonderful, and it made me feel like, you know." It's not that anymore.
So I could write an essay on motorcycle gangs, and that might get me into
Right.
Ivy
And what they're
League.
looking for is, what does it say about you? You're trying to show something about yourself in that essay, which will say to the school, this is the type of student I want to admit. So if you've got a great essay and that type of essay where it's compelling to colleges, they're going to choose you over other students who write, yeah, I went and I really had a fun time working on, you know, raising money for this. Yeah, everybody does that. They want to know something about you. What makes you different? What makes you the type of person that we want to have on our campus?
Why I love farming.
It could be, yeah. The more personal the essay, and quite frankly, what we tell students is the more narrow the essay, the more effective it's going to be. In other words, make the topic very narrow. Don't try to talk about a large concept, but rather talk about, like, it might be an instance where maybe every day you would go on the bus and you'd walk by the janitor, you'd say hi to the janitor and stuff, and you get on the bus. And then one day the bus is later, your mom's picking you up and you gotta wait, the janitor's and they start talking, and you find out he's got this amazing background. You know, he fought in Vietnam, he did this, he did that, he was this, and you just go, wow, this person I walk by every single day.
Everybody has a story.
Had no idea about this person, and now I got an opportunity to, and I really look at that person differently than I did. That shows something about who you are.
That's why I like this show, because everyone has a story.
Exactly, and that's, you know, so that's kind of what's happening in the, you know, the college admissions part with the test optional and the essay. The other thing just that I think is worth saying, to optimize, when parents say, well, how do I kind of position myself better? What colleges are also looking for is a thing called demonstrated interest, meaning they are more inclined to accept a student that they think will will actually enroll in the school, rather than someone who's just applying in it that's not really.
They want you to
someplace they wanna go.
participate in college.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's student government or whether it's clubs and so forth, they want you to
Yeah,
participate.
but even in the application process, they want you to go. If you, for instance, I tell parents, and I'm not an expert in this area.
Right.
I know people who are that I can refer people to, but also I've got a bunch of great articles on the subject that I send to parents that we're working with who are college age, is that when you go to the school, get a meeting with the admissions department. Have them create a file with your name on it. Have a list of questions, so we can give them questions to ask.
Wow.
See if you can attend a class. The more interest you show in the school, the more the school is going to be inclined to believe that you will attend if accepted.
Right.
That gives you a distinct advantage over that. And now they're even, with AI kind of becoming a really important element in our world,
Artificial
intelligence.
Yeah.
You know, they're monitoring the number of times that your IP address visits that site and what types of things you look
Wow.
at. It's really amazing. So
Yeah.
there's lots of great articles out there. You can Google them. People can reach out to me, and I'm happy to send them.
If you want to
the
go to
article.
BU, contact BU and look at their site.
Don't just go and, most people go and take the tour.
Yeah.
And that's great, and you learn a little bit, but they're going to show you all the good parts. They're not going to show you the bad parts.
Yeah, exactly.
So what you want to do is you want to get into admissions and go to financial aid. Say, what do I need to do to qualify for financial aid? How's merit aid determined? What do I need to do to qualify for merit aid?
Especially loans.
Yeah, and even
Find
if
out,
you don't,
because there's different types of loans.
It's amazing.
You have a loan that incurs interest when you go into college, and then there's one that starts after you get out of college now. But there is one. To me, I mean, I'd like to see these kids just play the principal. The interest
I know.
kills
That's a whole.
The interest kills them.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely, especially when you're deferring it for so long, you don't
Yeah.
realize interest is accruing.
Yeah.
And you wind up with twice the size of what you want.
loan,
And it's like paying off a
specific
mortgage.
loan,
We know how that works.
Yeah.
You know, you pay for 10 years and
Yeah.
you think, oh, I've got most of my mortgage paid off, and you find out I only paid off a very little bit. So
I know
it's a really difficult
I
landscape.
look at it this way in regards to helping them pay it off. It's like the GI Bill after World War II. These kids are going to pay taxes. If they're now they're moving, they're not going to pay taxes to society.
And you think if you're going to pay all that money, you want to go to a school that's the right fit for you, which is all part of that process of making sure you're going to a school that works well.